Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. New York City's public advocate serves as the link between the government and the public, acting really as an ombudsman or watchdog for New Yorkers. Letitia James was elected to that office in 2013, and she's my guest today, and welcome.
Thank you.
They say that you're always billed as the first African-American woman to hold citywide office. Mm-hmm. It's very good, and it's a great achievement, but I don't like saying it. I can't figure out why. First of all, it shouldn't be any news. We should have had this long before, right? Both for women and for African Americans and people of color. So the whole question of race and attitudes just really troubles me. We'll come back to discuss that a little longer.
But I think, the reality is I am the first African American woman, and I embrace that. Yeah. But the fact is that it really means nothing. It's nothing more than a historical footnote if you do nothing with it.
Yeah, and you're going to do something with it.
And we've got to make sure that the Office of Public Advocate is funded, that it's independent, and that it's a voice for those without a lobbyist and or a lawyer.
Yeah, I was going to say that you were a very strong campaigner. You were not the front runner at the time the campaign started. You're strong, you're outspoken, and what impresses me the most is that you do what you think is right without necessarily compromising.
I was outspent 6-1.
Yeah.
And I was running against some very powerful individuals in the city of New York, and this individual had some very powerful supporters. Mm. And there were times when I wasn't sure whether or not I was running against the senator from Albany or the senator from Washington. Right. And my supporters, for the most part, were individuals with small pockets, individuals who were just trying to make ends meet, individuals in public housing, women, working people in the city of New York. But at the end of the day, it was working people who prevailed and who brought me to victory. And for that, I continue to stand up and speak on behalf of their issues in the city of New York.
Yeah, well, you've interpreted this. There have been 3 advocates before you.
Yes.
And each one seemed to handle the job differently.
Yes.
I mean, it's an interesting job because it does have some specific responsibilities. You appoint people to different commissions. You chair the council meetings.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there was a time when, as you know, the former public advocate Betsy Gottbaum was removed from that position, was asked to be removed from sharing the city council meetings.
Who asked her?
At the time, it was Speaker Quinn. And under the leadership of Melissa Mark-Verito, one of her first appointments was as me as chair of the State Council meetings. So I am an ex officio member of the City Council, and I'm honored and privileged to preside over the City Council meetings.
And you're allowed also to introduce bills.
Sure. Yeah. We've introduced over 30 pieces of legislation.
You've been very busy.
We've been very busy. We've passed a number of pieces of legislation, and we're going to continue to focus on issues that we care about, including housing, homeless youth, including housing conditions in the city of New York, pay equity, campaign finance, issues involving senior citizens, the disabled community, the LGBT community. All of these issues and more, we have introduced legislation, and a number of them have already become laws in the city of New York.
So you have taken this office.
Yes.
Well, not only that, you're supposed to look at the government and see how it works, and you have, in a way, a funny kind of oversight, a direct kind of oversight, basically. But you've taken your office, and you are the watchdog, but you're really watchdog for people who really need to be listened to and to assert their power. You're a power for them.
Well, I think it's important to know that oftentimes individuals get involved with government. For the most part, it's individuals without a voice. Mm-hmm. And it's also important that historically, if you look at the
They're
office
the ones
of public,
who don't get involved.
They don't get involved in government, and they need an ally.
They lose out because of it.
They lose out, but they definitely need an ally in government. Mm-hmm. But I think what's important is that if you look historically over the Office of Public Advocate, you have Mark Green, who's our first public advocate. Mark Green, at the time, the mayor was Mayor Giuliani, 2 different parties. And then you had Betsy Gottbaum, 2 different parties. Mayor Bloomberg, obviously, was independent / Republican. And so as a result of those 2 public advocates in the city of New York, because they were not on the philosophically, they had a difference of opinion with the elected, with the mayor at that point in time. given that they were in different parties, there was some sort of a conflict, if you will. The relationship was not as smooth as the relationship that I have with Mayor de Blasio. I disagree with him from time to time. I use my voice, I use my ability to introduce legislation and my ability to litigate when we disagree with Mayor de Blasio, and we have from time to time disagreed. And as you know, I do have a close relationship with the Speaker, but I do take my oversight responsibilities very serious, and whenever I feel that they are not addressing the needs of the residents of the city of New York, I'm the first to stand up.
But you also push them. It isn't that you're not going to agree with their policies. You may suspect that they agree with you, but they haven't done it yet. That's what's interesting about being the advocate, right?
Well, in some cases we disagree, and in some cases they have either ignored or not paid attention to a particular issue, and so it's my responsibility to do either legislation, litigation, or agitation, and so those three tools are at my disposal, and we have used the office to get results. And the Office of Public Advocate has been much more active, particularly as it relates to litigation. As an attorney, I recognize that the law should be used as a tool for change. And I have used the lawyers in my office to basically bring actions against those individuals who I believe are engaging in injustice. For instance, the worst landlords in the city of New York. Landlords who basically threaten the health and the safety of residents, primarily seniors and individuals with children. And so we have a list of 7,000 worst landlords, primarily in neighborhoods that are changing. And these landlords, unfortunately,
they want people out.
They want people out, and they're not correcting the conditions. And so we have gone to court in a number of instances, and we've been successful. We've sued the administration, the de Blasio administration, on a wide range of issues over the conditions in homeless shelters, over children in ACS, the Administration for Children's Services, who are not being adopted. We've sued the administration with NYCHA, New York Public Housing Authority, the conditions. So we have sued the administration, and we've had conversations with the Speaker as well as the City Council on a wide range of issues.
So when you sue them, what's happened? Have any of them been resolved?
So in some cases, the administration has called me to a meeting, and we've resolved it. We've come out with some sort of resolution. It pushes them as to what we can do going forward. In some cases, they've indicated, we heard you were about to file a lawsuit. Can we sit down and talk and work this out? And so it's an instrument, a very powerful instrument to getting change. And lastly, as you know, today we are filing an amicus brief, an appeal in regards to the Eric Garner case. We sued the District Attorney of Staten Island because we want to unseal the grand jury minutes related to the Eric Garner case. And today we're filing an expedited appeal.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. The bottom line is that I believe that there's been an injustice, and what all of us witnessed on those two videos does not match up to the result of the grand jury not indicting. And we all know the saying, and you can indict a ham sandwich. And the question is, what happened in this particular case? What happened behind closed doors? So in addition to filing an expedited appeal, we are also lobbying in Albany for change
of the grand jury system.
Correct, so that we can have some sunshine.
Well, how would you do it? What would you change?
Well, let me just tell you the difference. You know, in Missouri, in the aftermath of Michael Brown's case, the reason why the district attorney was able to talk about the case was that, can you believe it or not, Missouri has sunshine. Our district attorney, we don't have sunshine, and so our district attorney was prohibited from talking about how, you know, why the grand jury decided not to indict. And the question that we have is, what were the charges that were presented? Perhaps the district attorney of Staten Island only presented the charge of murder. First degree murder instead of a negligent
voluntary or
exactly
something.
And so that makes sense. And so the question is, what were the charges, what were the instructions, what was the interpretation of law, how did he answer the question, how many witnesses, who were the witnesses, why did it take 7 weeks when most cases usually take 24 hours to return an indictment, or in some cases a matter of minutes.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you just use common sense and you see how incredible the procedures are, that they are senseless, overly protective of whatever they're trying.
And what's so interesting, and I think it's really important to note, that the district attorney of Staten Island argued before a judge to unseal part of a limited portion of the grand jury minutes, and it was granted. Now that we are arguing a much more expansive unsealing of the grand jury minutes, and he's opposing it.
Is this a state Supreme Court judge?
It's a state Supreme Court judge. The first Supreme Court judge granted District Attorney Donovan his application, then discovered there was a conflict and decided to step aside. New judge came and said, no, he will not unseal the grand jury minutes. But it's important to know that the grand jury minutes, the grand jury proceeding is not sacrosanct.
Right.
It's not something that it's never been unsealed in the past.
It's one of the most important measures, isn't it, to bring justice to a case?
And at a time when this criminal justice system, there's a lack of faith in the criminal justice system, and the system is broken, and a case where we all witnessed, the entire nation witnessed what happened, we don't understand why there was not an indictment returned in that particular case. And that's why, to restore faith in the criminal justice system, I believe, and a countless number of New Yorkers believe, that we should unseal those minutes to find out what happened behind closed doors. And because district attorneys in this particular case, or in all cases, what we are hearing is district attorneys saying, trust me, I know what's in your best interest. And I don't know about most New Yorkers, but I know a lot of New Yorkers who basically don't trust elected officials.
Exactly. Is there legislation being introduced also?
So, as you know, the chief judge of the state of New York said that we should change and radically reform our grand jury system. And so I thank Judge Lippman for that. The governor of the state of New York, Governor Cuomo, came out with making sure that there's a monitor in place. I think we should go a little step further than that. And we should really appoint a special prosecutor, particularly in cases where it involves a police death.
But it should really be, shouldn't it be available in every case before a grand jury?
I agree, but we need change in the state legislature. And right now, the Republican-led Senate is opposed to any change. Right. And the issue of criminal justice reform has been put off from the budget. And so we would hope that the state legislature would review the criminal justice system and enact some reforms going forward.
Now there's a renewed activity to do something with the criminal justice system in the city, just with the people appearing before a court and being sent to Rikers Island waiting for their trial. I mean, I read somebody's been there for 6 years without having a trial.
Well, yeah, I would argue that it violates habeas corpus, it violates our Constitution. And I do know that there are individuals on Rikers Island who are being held because they can't afford bail. I know that there are individuals on Rikers Island who suffer from mental illness, and Rikers Island has become a housing program for inmates who suffer from mental illness. And what we really need to do is divert them from the criminal justice system and refer them to community-based programs and/or to facilities where they can get the assistance.
They really should close Rikers Island.
What they need is to dramatically transform
open they have facilities in every borough, so they should open them and use them.
They need community courts.
Yep.
We have wonderful community courts, and we need more community courts in the city of New York. But at this point in time, I think Rikers Island should not be a place for individuals who suffer from mental illness. The officers who serve on Rikers Island, the correctional officers, are not in a position to handle individuals who suffer from mental illness.
But that's common to the whole prison system.
Yes.
The state prisons too. A large part of the population are mentally ill and are not receiving the kind of care they should be.
Whenever we close way back when the state facilities, as a result of that, we're seeing more individuals who suffer from mental illness on Rikers Island in our state system, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And then they get sent to the state system.
They get sent, and
yeah.
Exactly.
So, with all the work you do, where do we start to really? What would be the most basic thing to change things?
Oh, gee. So I think the City Council has done a great effort at transforming the system, at more transparency, particularly as it relates to the budget. I applaud those council members who have embraced participatory budgeting. I think that's excellent, so individuals can follow where the money is.
That's what's happening now.
That's what's happening now.
People should look at the websites of their council member to find out where to go to vote.
So that's a step in the right direction, so that's progress. Two, I think the process upon which the Speaker has basically changed how you introduce bills and how you hold hearings. It's consistent with a formula and a certain calendar. I think we've made progress there as well. And I think, again, this Speaker, the fact that she has equalized the budget is...
in a way with all the...
And in a way with all the favorites, with any punitive measures. As you know, in the past, because of my outspokenness, I did not receive a lot of discretionary dollars. Now, under the leadership of this speaker, every council member, whether or not you're a supporter or not, everyone gets equal funding so that districts are not harmed, particularly on districts where there's a high degree of need.
But where in our society do we start? Do we start with parenting skills when children are born, with education that provides them with a perspective that will make them have respect for sex, difference in color, everything, that'll teach them skills that they can get jobs? You know, where is it that we really, if we ideally could intervene, where do we start?
I think we need fundamental fairness in budgeting in the city of New York. There are some districts in the city where we have schools where they have no computers.
Yeah, it's
They don't have science labs, math labs. They don't have physical education. They need social workers. They need health care. We need to make sure that we address the needs in communities that are crying out for service.
So we need income, housing, jobs, health care,
right,
education.
And we need government that works. And let's start first in Washington, D.C., where unfortunately what we are seeing in Washington, D.C. is a government that unfortunately is just paralyzed. And we're not getting our fair share. We need infrastructure funding. We need to put Americans back to work. We need to look at small businesses. We need a major infusion of money on housing. This crisis in affordable housing is real. It's a shame that 60,000 individuals will go to sleep in our shelters tonight, homeless, a third of them children. Washington has turned its back on urban centers, and New York City is prime example, and we are hurting as a result.
I want just to discuss one of the major issues when you were in the council on land use was your opposition to what do you call it?
Atlantic Yards.
Atlantic Yards. It was approved. It started. The stadium was built. The subway station was built. Where is the affordable housing?
So they're building, I believe, two buildings right now of affordable housing. We are continuing to monitor the situation, and we hope that they would go forward in building the affordable housing, but more importantly, making sure that the affordable housing goes to residents who are in desperate straits in the local community boards. And last but not least, that the units are large enough to actually fit families as opposed to single adults.
I was reading about it yesterday. I mean, the timeline goes to 2030 something to complete the project.
Yes.
Now, the mayor has this whole new program of building more buildings, so you set aside affordable housing. So why can't they push this to move faster?
So right now we're working with the administration to build 200,000 units of affordable housing. It's actually 80. There are 120,000 is really a preservation of affordable housing that we've lost, that which exists, hopefully that we would not lose it. So it's 80,000 units of affordable housing all throughout the city, which includes the use of rezoning. So we need to rezone some neighborhoods in the city of New York.
Are your neighborhoods going to like 40 and 50-story buildings?
Well, we're moving closer and closer to a vertical city.
Yeah.
There is no more land. There's no more city-owned land in the city of New York.
It's not going to be any sky.
So so there's not going to be any sky. It's going to be a lot of opposition, but we've got to be much more creative and innovative in how we plan. We've got to make sure that it's that communities have a voice in the conversation, and that we respect the dignity and the character of neighborhoods, and that we build it along corridors that can handle the density.
Yeah. Years ago, Senator McGovern ran for president, and he, I think, has a record for defeat. I mean, I think he carried one state. But he espoused the position of a guaranteed income, a guaranteed minimum income to people. We lost that belief a long time ago. And then it became public assistance, which was always done in a mean way. Now I think it's changing more.
Right.
But that whole concept, you know, especially in these days where you've got the one end here and the other end down here, maybe we should go back to thinking about how we could do that.
The fact that wealth is concentrated within the hands of 1% is just, it's unconscionable. So we've got to deal with the feminization of poverty. We've got to deal with wages. We have to raise the wage. We should raise the wage to $15 an hour. There's going to be a number of events all throughout the city of New York where where we are seeking to pressure industries to raise the wage to at least $15 an hour.
And you're also taking an initiative and trying to explore a way to have pensions for private sector workers.
So we are.
It's
retirement security for all. There are more workers in the city and in the state who do not have a retirement security, and we are looking at ways within which to provide individuals retirement security in the city and in the state.
Where did you get all this passion and drive? Is it?
Where did I get all this passion and drive? Because I'm close to the ground, and I talk to residents. I sit around their kitchen tables.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Park Slope, and I'm a Brooklyn girl, and just this passion.
Came from a large family.
I came from a large family. I have 7 sisters and brothers, but I think the bottom line is that I
you have the empathy and the understanding.
Did
you go through some of the struggles that people are going through now?
So, yes, my family has gone through some struggles, but at the time I didn't know it was a struggle. We had we had a working class family. It was fine. But all you have to do is open up your eyes. And all you have to do is understand and see the suffering and struggles of others and recognize that we can do better than that. And that when you see the differences and the tales of two cities, when you go to certain parts of the city and other parts of the city and you see the disparity, that should tear at your heart. And that should question, and that should...
why isn't that empathy more widespread?
I can't answer that question. All I can say
is... Do you think about that?
I do think about that, but I have a responsibility and a duty to stand up. And I think what it comes from is really my faith more than anything else. I think as opposed to my family has a lot to do with it, but I think more than anything else, it's my faith. And it's been instilled in me from a young child. And more than anything else, we were taught, obviously, to care for our fellow human being and to recognize that all of us, that no one should suffer, and that we should extend a hand to everyone, and that we should respect the humanity of others, and that they should live in dignity and respect.
Did you always want to be a lawyer when you were young?
Yes, because I went to court as a young child, and I saw that everyone in the courtroom who were defendants looked like me, and I knew there was something wrong with that picture.
Isn't that interesting?
No, it's not interesting. It's institutional
it's
racism.
Terrible. Absolutely. Do you think we're ever going to get rid of racism?
I would hope so.
How are we going to do that?
I think all of us, we need to get past all of these firsts, and what we really need to do is really look at the suffering of all of individuals and look at it globally and internationally and recognize that race is nothing more than an artificial construct which separates you and I, and the differences between you and I are rather minuscule. And what we really should focus on is our commonality. And our commonality is, one, making sure that our schools work, our streets are cleaned, our police respect all individuals, that we live in an environment which is free from toxins, things like that. That's what you and I care about, and that's what we should work on, as opposed to some artificial construct, as opposed to, your skin color and my skin color. So, and at the end of the day, if you went to Florida, you would probably look like me anyway.
I wish I did. I love the color. See, I don't like the white.
You look fabulous.
Oh, thank you, but so do you. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
You were outspoken, although you really can't do that much, about the MTA fair. I mean, how do people survive? I go market. I love to say I go marketing. My friends make fun of me with the expression, but some of my happiest days used to be a fairway. It's getting so expensive now. It's getting like everything else. But anyway, how do people afford, if they're lucky enough to have an apartment? Chances are they're not still rent control, because that's only really older people who I think are in rent control apartments. They got rent. They have a job, but they have to pay how much money to get the job?
Let me just say this. You said there's not much we can do about it. That's not true.
Okay.
We were able to have the MTA change their position with respect to victims of sexual assault on subways. We raised the issue. We wrote a letter to the MTA, and within 72 hours they wrote us back, and they basically said, you're right, Public Advocate. We're going to put cameras on our subway. We're going to educate our workforce. We're going to have a safe space for victims of sexual assault on subway, and we're going to have ads. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Then we had a press conference not too long ago with someone who you know very well, Mr. Jones of the Community Service Society. And we had a press conference with him with respect to, you raise the fare, and how are individuals going to afford it?
They did that yearly survey.
They did a survey, and the question is whether or not they're adequately addressing they're managing their books. So we've got a surplus in the state of New York, and we're urging the governor of the state of New York to use some of that surplus to reduce the fares and or to address the needs of individuals.
And do it by income. Yeah. You've cited other cities that have done that.
San Francisco and Seattle.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do? The fare is contingent on your income.
Yes, it's income.
It has to be, something has to happen. Plus, we have to try to get that commuter tax back.
Well, we need the commuter tax back. We need to tax the rich. There's a number of things that we can do. We need to tax the landlords who are absentee landlords in the city of New York. There's a number of initiatives that we can take in the city of New York to address income inequality and the feminization of poverty, that women are being paid less than men.
And this
doing the same job.
Today happens to be Pay Equity Day.
It's Pay Equity Day. I didn't wear my red because I am going to a funeral today, but red really represents the fact that women are in the red because we make less than men. And it also represents the passion of the movement, that women should be paid the same as men. And it will go a long way in addressing our economy, families, and children.
And it makes so much more sense because then you have more consumers, which helps the general economy.
And it's fundamental fairness. Can you imagine Hillary Clinton being paid less than President Obama for doing the same exact job?
Are you supporting Hillary Clinton?
I'm looking forward to a conversation with our former Secretary of State. And it would be great to have a woman as president, but we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, but you're going to push her anyway, so you know you're going to support her. You're going to push her, and she's going to do well.
She's going to do well. She's going to be our president at the end of the day. She is the candidate of the Democratic Party.
And you're going to be sure
I'm a
that she's going to do
right. And I'm going to make sure that we're on the same page on the issue, on all of the issues that I addressed today. But we need to have a conversation first. Okay. I look forward to meeting with her.
Well, Ms. Public Advocate, yes. I am delighted to talk to you. I'm delighted you're the public advocate, and I look forward to hearing from you many more times.
Thank you. I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.